Hello everyone. Today we will discuss topic 2. Like as I explained you in the previous previous lecture, that we're gonna cover 4 different topics for your final exams point of view. So 4 different topics. The other topic, the first topic we're gonna discuss here is topic 2, and this topic 2 cover the calculation parts, calculations plus discussions. So at the end of this this lecture, I will explain you that what kind of discussion questions could become from this topic 2. In addition, since this topic is more based on the calculations, so by that reason, one lecture or one video may not be enough for this topic, which is topic 2. So that's why I will make another video for next week. All right. And in that video, we will focus more on the calculations questions, the questions you're more likely to, the type of questions you're more likely to see in your final exams. All right, like some seminar-based questions. All right. So let's start with topic 2. So topic 2 is standard costing and variance analysis. And these topics from chapter 17, all right, and during 9th edition. I hope you have these editions. If you do not have these 9th editions of your recommended textbook, so please send me email. I will give you a copy of this textbook, right? So let's start with the topic 2. So first thing is we will start by recalling the previous lectures that we studied last week, which is introductions. So recall control. Like in the previous lecture, we looked at the budgeting process, planning, controlling, and decision-making process. In that decision-making process, if you remember, step 5 and step 6. Step 5 and 6 is about controlling, which means by comparing 2 different informations, which means comparing the actual results and the standard results, which means planned results, in order to find whether there is any difference between actual results and the planned results. This kind of process is called standard costing system, in which we're gonna compare between what we want to achieve, which is standard, and what we actually achieve, right? So we also call it controlling process. So standard costing. Now, what does it mean, standard cost or standard costing? Standard costing means predetermined cost of single units. When we plan for single activities, that's called standard costing. All right? Keeping in mind that standard is different from budgets. What's the difference? Budget is planned for total activities. Plan for total. That is budget. Alright? And standard is planned for single. Alright? That's mainly the difference. However, both have the same ideas: planning, predeterminations of total and predetermination of single units. So that's the basic ideas behind standard costing. So now we go more in detail, which is about detailed analysis of variance, right? So detailed analysis of variance. So how does it work? So we're gonna have a look here. Right? So we have actual results, or actual cost traced. In simple words, actual results, right? And we have standard cost of actual outputs. So means what was the plan for the results that we actually received, right? Standard cost of actual outputs. So, in simple words, we can say that this is the actual results, right? This is the planned results, standard of budgets. If budgets means total. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna compare the difference. Difference means a gap. So that gap also called a variance. Now what does it mean, variance? Variance means a gap between actual results and the planned results. Alright? So now we're gonna see the difference, and we know that the difference could be positive or negative. Means we achieved, or our actual results is better than standard, which means our variance is a positive, or our results could be negative, means maybe my standard is better than the actual. Alright? So idea is this variance could be a positive or a negative. Alright? Positive or negative. Positive means actual results is better. Right? Better than standard results. Alright? Actual result is better than standard results. That's called the positive variance. And negative variance means standard results is better than actual results. Keep in your mind, better, not higher. Alright? You will find out later the difference between the better or the higher. Alright? So now you already got the ideas. What is positive variance and a negative variance. All right. However, when we prepare our variance analysis statement, in that statement we do not describe the difference between these two results by negative or the positive signs. All right. We do not use the word positive or negative. So I'm writing here the word positive and negative for you to understand. All right. But in reality, we use another word. All right. That's for positive variance, we call it favorable. Favorable means variance is positive, right? And here is unfavorable. Unfavorable. Unfavorable means variance is negative. So instead of writing long, that word favorable, we can use the word F. F indicates favorable, right? And U indicates unfavorable. Right? So you don't have to write favorable, just write F or U, right? Okay. Once we have variance, once we estimated or once we calculated variance, favorable or unfavorable, means we found that there is a difference, positive difference or the negative difference. So we need to know what are the reasons for it. So we call it possible causes. Possible causes means what are the reasons behind these kinds of variances, results. All right? Means we may not achieve. What are the reasons? Or we achieved. What are the reasons? Right? So we call it possible causes. All right. So once we have possible causes, then we have to find out the corrective action. So means how we can overcome that issues for the future. All right. Of course, we cannot make any changes once because we already got the results, actual results. We can't make changes in the actual results. So for the future references, we need to know that whatever mistake we have done in this results, how we can overcome with that issues. So that things covered in corrective actions. All right. So that's the meaning of corrective action. So in other words, we can say that change in the standard estimations, because that standard estimations have something wrong. That's why my results may be unfavorable. So I have to make some necessary changes in future in order to get some favorable results. All right. Or if my result is favorable, then we have to maintain that standard or increase a little bit more in order to motivate managers or achieve company objective. All right. So that's the basic ideas of this point B. All right. So point B also gives the complete overview of this topic too. All right, so let me summarize this point B. So we're gonna do 3 things in point B. First thing, we will calculate variance, all right, and we report whether results is favorable or unfavorable. All right. Second things, we have possible causes. What are the reasons of these favorable and unfavorable results? Right. And the third thing is a corrective actions. All right. So we have some formulas here. Formulas here to calculate variance, cost variance, sales variance, and the profit variance. All right, and mainly this, which means this is more about discussion based. What are the reasons of these kinds of variance? Like, as for example, labor rate variance. All right. I was expecting that I will pay $15 per hour to my worker. I was expecting that I will pay $15 per hour to my worker. But actually, I am paying $17 per hour. So which means $2 is unfavorable, because my actual cost increased, which means my standard cost is better, which is lower cost. All right. So $2 is my unfavorable labor rate variance. So what are the reasons? Reasons could be many that we will study at the end of the lecture, but I give you quick ideas what could be the reasons that my standard results is better than the actual, why I'm paying $2 extra. Let's say major changes in the labor law. All right, country labor law has been revised by the government, and government now announced that every worker must earn at least $17 or $18 per hour. All right, so obviously you have to increase your labor. But the time you were making your standard, you didn't have any ideas that government going to revise the labor law in future. All right. So that's kind of things called possible causes. So that is more about discussion based. So as I explained you in the previous lecture, that your final exams gonna have calculations, all right, and discussions. All right, at the end of lecture, you will understand much more in detail about this discussion based. All right, so that's the basic ideas behind the standard costing and the variance analysis, and these things you're gonna learn in this topic too. All right. Now move on to learning outcome 2. So learning outcome 2 is about what are the purposes of standard costing system, or why standard costing and variance analysis is important for the organizations, right? the purpose of standard costing. So first thing, as you know that standard costing is a predeterminations, is forecasting, it's a planning, all right? So by that reasons, one of the main purpose of the standard costing is to predict future cost. With the help of standard costing, we can understand that cost gonna be occur in the future by creating this or by implementing this standard costing system in the organizations. All right. Next one is another purpose of the standard costing is to motivate managers. It helps us to motivate the managers. All right. How? Because it's a plan. Right? It's a part of budgets. So by that reason, in the standard costing, we are giving a particular standards to the different kinds of people in our organizations, and we are setting the particular target for these people. If they achieve it, company will give them some rewards. All right. So such kind of standards eventually motivating the managers, because when we have any kinds of targets or objectives or goals, then of course we put much more efforts. All right. Next one is it helps us to prepare budgets, because standard is a single, all right, single activity or single units. However, budget is a total, all right. So means obviously standard costing help us to preparing for the budgets. So it's providing much more detailed informations, or it's providing very specific informations for the budget, so we can achieve it. I'm sorry, we can make it, all right, make our budget. Or we can also say that if we are implementing standard costing system, then of course we gonna reduce the time for making a budget, because we already received the informations of that particular units. All right, predetermination cost of the single units, as I mentioned in the previously. All right. So that's the third purpose of standard costing. And standard costing is a control device. All right. Control device means we gonna supervise all the kinds of activities and transactions occur in our organizations. All right. How we know it's a control device? Because of the corrective actions. Because we have in the standard costing, we are comparing actual results with the standard results, and then we're going to find out the possible causes. Right? So this comparison called the controlling. Right? So it's kind of providing much more reasons for the companies to know that why we are not achieving budgets or our standards or our targets, or how we can improve our performance in the future. So in other words, we can say that it's a performance measurement tool, right? With the help of this standard costing system, we can estimate the value of inventory. Right? How? So let me draw a small diagram for you to understand that how does it help us to estimate the inventory valuations, right? Okay, so here is a standard and this is the actual. All right, so the difference between standard and the actual, it's a variance. All right, keep in your mind, if you have any kinds of variance, all right, if we have any kinds of variance, that variance will be treated as a period cost, like as overheads. When we are calculating, when we are preparing our income statements, we have a material, labor, and overheads. Material and labor are the direct cost that easily determined. However, overhead is not easily determined. So we're going to make a standard for the overheads, for example. All right. And at the end of the period, we came to know that whatever standard we have determined it, we did not achieve it. So the difference is the variance. So we have to make some changes in our income statement. So that changes will be made in a period cost, not in a product cost, even though that's overhead is about indirect material. All right. So we're gonna make some changes in the period cost. All right. So why I'm writing here profit and loss, because this period cost, of course, it's a cost, which is a part of profit and loss accounts. All right. And with the help of standard costing, we know that if the product has been sold, that will be part of income statement cost. All right. The product hasn't sold it, that will be in the balance sheet. So that's kind of sold and unsold information help us to calculate the value of the inventory. Same thing, we are recognizing the variance to estimate the total value of the inventory. Instead of just simply ignoring the standard, we're gonna record these kinds of variance as a period cost in our income statement. All right. So this kind of things, I mean, we can do these kind of things with the help of the standard costing. If we will ignore that kind of standard costing system, what will be the impact over the company income statement or the short-term assets such as inventory? So the impact could be that cost could be undervalued or overvalued. So final results also have some kinds of problems and the issues. So as a result, if your valuations are under or over, not accurate, so we're gonna face a problem in order to make a right decision. As a result, company will not achieve its objective. So that's the reason we have to implement that kind of standard costing system in the right manner in our organizations. All right. So that's all about the purpose of the standard costing, learning outcome 2. So now we move on to the learning outcome 3. Right? So now learning outcome 3 is about variance analysis. So as I explained you in the learning outcome 1, that we're gonna study different kind of formulas. So we're gonna do the same thing in the learning outcome 3. So in learning outcome 3, we will find out what are the formulas we have, and later on we will do some calculations using that formulas to estimate favorable or unfavorable variance, right? So we start with the profit variance. Profit variance. Profit variance is a difference between cost variance and the sales variance, right? Because sales minus cost is the profit, all right? So cost, in this topic, I will cover only manufacturing cost, all right? Because selling and administration cost, it's not part of your syllabus, all right? However, the estimation for selling and distribution cost is similar. Same thing we do in the selling and administration cost, which is favorable and unfavorable variance. But for this course, we will not cover selling and administration cost. So we will focus only on manufacturing cost, right? So manufacturing cost variance. So we have manufacturing cost variance and the sales variance. So the difference between manufacturing cost variance and the sales variance is a profit variance. So whatever we will do it here, that number will give us information about cost variance, sales variance, and this minus this is the profit variance, right? So let's start with the manufacturing cost variance. As we know that we studied in our BTech H&D program, that manufacturing cost is a combination of three things, right? Direct material cost, direct labor cost, and overhead cost, right? So here we have variance. So direct material cost variance, labor cost variance, and overhead variance. Right? So three variants we're gonna cover here. So material cost variance, right? Labor cost variance, right? And overhead variance. Okay, so let's start with the material cost variance. Material cost variance help us to estimate the actual results of the material cost that we are actually paying, right? And the standard results of material cost that we were expecting. For, let's say I was expecting that I will spend $5,000 for my material cost, right? But actually I'm paying $6,000. So the difference called a variance. So material cost variance here is a combination of two different variances, right? Material price variance and material usage variance, right? Material price variance and material usage variance, right? Material price variance. Material price variance means how much I am planning to pay for, all right? And the difference between actually paid and planned. And usage means how much I was expecting of material consumptions to make one product, let's say this pen, all right? And how much actually I am consuming, the quantity of material to make this pen, all right? That's called the material usage. Usage means utilizations of our resource, which is, of course, material, right? So, material price variance. So let's start with the material price variance. So the formula is standard price minus actual price multiplied by actual quantity. Standard price minus actual price multiplied by multiplied by actual quantity. You can rewrite these formulas in another way, like as standard price multiplied by actual quantity minus actual price multiplied by actual quantity. Alright? So these kinds of formula will help you to estimate the material price variance. Right? So let me calculate for you so you can get the ideas that how we estimate how to estimate the material price variance. So that will give you some kinds of numbers, right? Let's say my standard price, actual price, actual quantity, standard quantity. So let's say standard price is $7. Actual price is $5. Actual quantity is 100 units. Alright. And standard quantity is 120 units. Alright. So standard price is $7 minus actual price is $5. Actual quantity is 100. Alright? So 7 minus 2, 7 minus 5 is 2. 2 multiplied by 100 is 200. Alright? 200. But now the question is whether this 200 is favorable or unfavorable. Right? So we can see that here. Standard price. I was planning that I will pay $7 per units, but actually I am paying $5 per units. So which means I am saving $2 per units. Right? I am saving. Is it good or bad? Of course, it's good. It's sign of positive variance, which means 200 F. That's the answer. So please note down. If you are not writing U or F, then there is no any value of this number. Alright? So in order to make valuable this number, you have to tell the examiner whether it's a favorable results or the unfavorable results. Without U and F, what if I'm not writing F, what does it mean? 200 what? Over or under? Underperformance or overperformance? Alright? So that's why, so 200 F. So 200 F is my material price variance. Alright, so let me write down here. So 200 F is my material price variance. Next is a material usage variance, right? Or you can also write down this standard quantity minus actual quantity multiplied by standard price. Alright? Or you can write down in this formula as a standard quantity multiplied by standard price. Actual quantity multiplied by standard price. Right? So we're going to use the same number to estimate material usage variance. Alright? Okay. So my standard quantity is 120 minus actual quantity is 100 multiplied by standard price, which is the $7. Alright. So 120 minus 100 is 20. 20 multiplied by 7 is 140. So now the question is, this 140 is favorable or unfavorable? So have a look here. I was planning that when I produce that particular product, my material consumptions will be 120 units, kilograms. Alright? But actually my consumption is 100. Right? So that means I'm not really wasting lots of material. In fact, I am saving the quantity of material. But please note down that whenever a company they estimate the standard, company keep in mind the quality of the materials, right? Because if we are using a less quantity of materials, the quality of products may be affected. Right? So here we can't say that this is bad because the product quality will be affected. Alright, so from the cost point of view, yes, we are saving a less cost, but again keep in mind that we should maintain the quality of the product as well. Alright, so that means I am saving 20 units. 20 kilograms per product, right? So by that reason, 140 F, all right, $140 favorable. So 140 F is my material usage variance. Right. So that's my material price variance and material usage variance. So now the question is, what is material cost variance? So now material cost variance is 200F, 140F. So 340F is my material cost variance. Alright, so keep in your mind. For example, if it's not F, if it's U, let's assume, if this 140 is U, so which means 200F minus 140. So the difference is 60. 60 F. Alright? Let me write for you. So let's say it's 200 F and 140 U. So because it's favorable and unfavorable, so we cannot add them. Positive and negative, of course, we can say that. So it's a 60 F. That would be your answer if this is 140 U. But that's, of course, that's not the case. That's my that's why 200 plus 140 is 340 F. Right. So that is the labor cost variance. Right. So let's move on to the next. So this one already finished. Let's move on to the labor cost variance. Right. So labor cost variance is the combination of two different variances. Right. So these two different variances involved labor rate variance and labor efficiency variance. All right. So labor rate variance and labor efficiency variance. Labor rate, R-A-T-E, labor rate variance. Labor efficiency, right? Labor efficiency variance. All right. So labor rate variance and labor efficiency variance. Right. So labor rate variance, this means how much we are planning to pay to our worker, right? And labor efficiency is more about their performance, right? How many hours they take to complete that particular products. Right? Let's say I'm expecting that workers will work 10 hours. In these 10 hours, they produce 500 products. But actually in 10 hours, they are producing 600 products. So their performance is not as good as they expected. All right? So that is the labor efficiency variance. So let's start with the labor rate variance. So this per hour, how much we're going to pay to our workers, right? So formula is standard rate minus actual rates multiplied by actual hours, right? You can also rewrite these formulas similar to these other two formulas. So I'm not writing here, but you can write down like SR multiplied by AH minus AR multiplied by AH. If you rearrange that formula, of course, that will turn into this formula. All right. So let me write down some other numbers on the top so we can estimate this labor rate variance. Right? So standard rate 7, actual rate 9, actual hours 100, and standard hours 110. Right? So let's estimate this number. So standard rate is 7, actual rate is 9, and actual hours 100. Alright. So 7 minus 9, 2. 2 multiplied by 100 is 200. Alright. So now the question is, this 200 is favorable or unfavorable? let's see. Let's understand whether it's favorable or unfavorable. I was planning that I will pay $7 per hour to my worker, right? But actually I am paying $9 per hour to my worker. So it means I am paying $2 per hour to my worker. If my worker will work 100, so it means I'm paying $200. All right. So this $200 is unfavorable. All right. This $200 is unfavorable. It means I'm paying $200 more than I expected. Right. So my labor rate variance is 200 U. All right. 200 U is my labor rate variance. So let's move on to labor efficiency variance. So I repeat what this efficiency variance. It says that how many hours workers are working to complete the job, right? So, how many hours workers works to complete a job? That is labor efficiency variance. So let's say, I explained before that I want my worker will work 8 hours, and in these 8 hours they produce 800 products. Whether they are producing 800 products or not, if they are producing 800 or above 800, which is good, they achieve the targets, or they perform better than the targets, which is of course favorable variance. If they are unable to produce 800 products, so that means variance is unfavorable. All right. So let's estimate here labor efficiency variance. All right. So formula is standard hours minus actual hours multiplied by standard rate, right? So again, I'm not going to write in these formulas in other way. If you want, you can write down. So so we're gonna apply the same numbers in this formula here. So standard hours 110, actual hours 100, and standard rate is $7. All right. So 110 minus 100 is 10, multiplied by 7 is 70. Right. So now the question is it favorable or unfavorable? So let's check. I was planning that my worker will take 110 take 10 hours to complete the job. But actually, they are taking 100 hours. So which means I am saving 10 hours. All right? Per worker or total worker. So if I pay them $7, so which means I'm saving $70. So $70 is F, which is good. All right. So my labor efficiency variance is 70 F. All right. It's 70 F. So now what is my labor cost variance? So my labor cost variance 200 U, 200 U and 70 F, which means 130 U. Alright, so my labor cost variance is 130 U. That is my labor cost variance. So that's all about labor cost variance. So labor cost variance is finished. So now move on to the next one. Overhead variance. So I don't have enough space to write overheads on the next sheet. I'll write overhead cost variance. Overhead, of course, it's a total overhead, and total overhead is a combination of two kinds of overheads. Variable overheads and the fixed overheads. All right. So let's move on to the next. Overhead cost variance. Right. So, as I said, overhead cost variance is a combination of let me write down in another way so later we can easily calculate. So, cost variance. And here you have sales variance. Here, sales variance. So we have profit variance. So in cost variance, so let's start with the overhead. Overhead cost variance. In overhead cost variance, we have is a combination of two types of variances: variable overhead cost variance and fixed overhead cost variance. So variable overhead cost variance and fixed overhead cost variance. Right. Fixed and variable. Okay. So let's start with the variable overhead cost variance. Variable overhead cost variance, before estimating variable overhead cost variance, we need to understand what is the variable overheads, right? Any kinds of indirect manufacturing cost in form of variable cost, all right? It could be indirect material, all right? Could be indirect labor, all right? So which is change over the period of time, variable, right? But not direct. Indirect, right? So indirect material, indirect labor, right, involved in manufacturing, and they will change as per the change in the level of activity, right? So, so variable overhead cost variance is divided into two different variances, right? So the first is a variable overhead expenditure variance, or sometimes we call it variable overhead spending variance, right? Expenditure means spend. Expenditure, right? So right, EX, right? That is variable overhead expenditure variance, and next is variable overhead efficiency variance, EF. EF stands for efficiency. Same before. Efficiency. Alright. Variable overhead efficiency variance and variable overhead expenditure variance. Okay, so let's start with the variable overhead expenditure variance. So variable overhead expenditure variance basically expressed in terms of machine hour or labor hour. We can also call it base. All right. So I repeat, this variable overhead expenditure variance estimated in terms of labor hours or machine hours. How many hours labor work or how many hours machine run? So labor hours and machine hours. Right. Okay. So what is variable overhead variable overhead expenditure variance? Variable overhead expenditure variance is the difference between actual variable overhead and budgeted variable overheads. Alright, I repeat, actual variable overhead and budgeted variable overhead. While actual variable overhead cost will be estimated using indirect material. Alright, so using indirect material, we will estimate actual variable overheads and budgeted. So difference between actual variable overhead and the budgeted, it's called the variable overhead spending variance. Alright, so the formula is actual variable overhead per base minus standard variable overhead per base multiply by actual overhead base. Actual overhead base. Okay. Per base. So keep in your mind, base indicates base. So here, base indicates machine hour, right? Machine hour or labor hours. Right? Machine hour or labor hours. So actual variable overhead per base means how many dollars per machine hour or labor hours, right? Per machine hour or labor hours, so actual hours. Right. So let me write down some number here. So for example, actual variable overhead per base, let's say it's a $5 per labor hours, right? And it's $7 per labor hours, and actual overhead base, which means of course hours. So let's say it's 100, right? Let's say it's 100, right? So 5 minus 72, 2 multiplied by 100 is 200. So variable overhead expenditure variance is 200. Now the question is 200F or 200U. I was planning that I will spend $7 per labor hours, but actually $5. So I'm saving $2, so that's why it's a F. Right? So that is variable overhead expenditure variance. Next is variable overhead efficiency variance, right? Now what is more about efficiencies, it's more about performance, but if its performance is more about indirect, right? So how to explain variable overhead efficiency variance? So variable overhead efficiency variance basically tells us that whether plant assets is running as we expected, or plant assets is producing the product, number of product as we expected. So let's say we are expecting that plant assets will run 10 hours in a day and produce 5,000 products, but actually it's running 10 hours and producing 5,000 product or 500 products or not. So that's kind of information we can get it through variable overhead efficiency variance, right? So so we write the formula here. So formula is the actual overhead base minus standard overhead base actual overhead base, standard overhead base, multiplied by standard variable So let me fix this one. It's actual variable overheads. Actual variable overheads, and it's standard variable overhead. All right. So actual variable overhead base total, standard variable overhead base total, and standard variable overhead per base, right? So let's say actual variable overhead base, same number I use it here, which is 100 hours, machine hours, let's say, all right? And standard is 90, right? And standard variable overhead per base, let's say it's $10 per machine hours. Right? So I was expecting that my machine will run 90 hours to produce that particular products, but it's taking 100 hours to produce that amount of product. So which means my machine is running 1 hour extra to produce the same amount of the product. So what does it mean? 100 minus 90, 10, 10 multiplied by 100, 10 is 100, right? So it's 100 here. 100 U, right? 100 U. I was expecting that my machine will run 90 hours to make, let's say, 1,000 product, but actually it's running 100 hours to make 1,000 products. So it's not as I expected, so it's running 1 hour extra, right? So by that reason, my results is unfavorable. So now what is my overhead cost variance? So my overhead cost variance is 100 F. Right? Why 100F? Because 200F is variable overhead cost. Sorry, no. It's a variable. It's a variable cost. It's not total cost. Sorry. after this number, so this and this. So 200 and 100 is 100 F. 100 F is my variable overhead cost. Variance is 100 F. Alright? Because of this number which comes from variable overhead expenditure variance, and this number which comes from variable overhead efficiency variance. So 100 favorable variance is my variable overhead. Right? So let's move on to the fixed overheads. Fixed overhead cost variance. Right? So keep in your mind that fixed overhead cost variance will remain unchanged in shorter period of time. Alright, so we will not estimate the fixed overhead for short terms. Right? However, for long terms, it's going to make some changes in the overhead, fixed overhead. So now, what is the formula for fixed overhead cost variance? So keep in your mind just for very basic things that I believe you know that mainly variable cost is estimated using per units. Right? However fixed is the total. Right? So if we will say per unit, so we use the word standard. But when we talk about the total, we use the word budget. Okay. So now we estimate the fixed overhead cost variance. So please, I repeat, variable cost or variable overhead focus more on variable cost per unit. So by that reason, we are using the standard. Right? I repeat that in variable, we are using variable cost, of course, using variable cost per unit. However, standard focus more on the total. So here is a formula for fixed overhead cost variance. So formula is budgeted fixed overhead minus actual fixed overhead. All right. So we assume budgeted fixed overhead is a 100,000 and actual fixed overhead is 9,900. As a result, my variance is 100 F. Why F? Of course, because I was expecting that I will spend around $10,000 for fix, but actually I'm spending $9,900. So I am saving $100. So as a result, 100 F. So this is my fixed overhead cost variance. So my fixed overhead cost variance is 100, and my variable overhead cost variance is 100 as well. So my overhead cost variance is 100, 100, both are F, that's why 200 F. So my overhead cost variance is 200 F. So if you go back to the material cost variance and labor, which is here. So my material cost variance is 340 F, and my labor cost variance is 130 U. So 130 U, 200 F, 340 F. So 410 is my cost variance, F, because F. So 410 F is my cost variance. Right. So now we move on to the sales variance. All right. So sales variance is a combination of two variances. All right. It's a combination of two variances: selling price variance and sales volume variance. Sales price or selling price variance and sales volume variance. right? So let's start with the selling price variance. So means how much the difference between the actual price and the standard selling price. So the formula is actual selling price minus standard selling price multiplied by actual sales volume. All right. Let's assume that actual selling price was 10, standard selling price was 9. All right. And multiply by 100, and the variance is 100F. Right? Why 100F? Because I was planning that I will sell one product at the rate of 9. Alright, but actually I'm selling at the rate of $10. So which means I'm selling $1 more. Multiplied by 100 is $100 F. This is selling price variance. Next is a sales volume variance. So sales volume variance, how many units I will sell it, which also represent the sales turnover. So the formula is actual sales volume minus budgeted sales volume multiplied by standard contribution margin. So please note that the contribution margin is sales minus variable cost is a contribution margin. Right? So let's assume my actual sales volume is 100 units and my budgeted sales volume is 120 units and my standard contribution margin is $9. So 100 minus 120 is 20, multiplied by 90 is 180. 180 U is my sales volume variance. Why it's U? Because I was planning that I will sell 120 units, but actually I am selling 100 units. So of course I'm selling S20 multiplied by 90 is 180 U. So now my sales price variance is 100 F. My sales volume variance is 100 U. So my sales variance is 80 U. And my cost variance is 410. So this is F and this is U. So 410 minus 80 is 330 F is my profit variance. So that's all. One more thing, I would like to inform you that where most of students they make mistakes, because most of students they know that sales minus cost is profit. All right. For example, cost variance is 400 F and sales variance is 100 F. So some students they think that always sales minus cost is profit, and that's true. Sales minus cost is a profit, but they forget that we are not simply calculating profit, we are calculating profit variance, in which F, or U or F is really important. Right? So that's why some students, when they calculate profit variance, they 400 minus 100, so which is 300, and they call 300 is a profit variance, but they are wrong. All right, so keep in your mind, even though it's a sales number and it's a cost number, so when you subtract or add, you focus more on these two. So let's say my sales variance is 100F, my cost variance is 400F, so my profit variance is 500F. All right, that's my $500 F is my right profit variance. Right, so keep in your mind. So focus when you're going to add or subtract something. You focus more on the F or U. All right. If FF, of course you add F and U, you minus. If both U, of course you minus, and your final profit variance will be unfavorable. Alright? So that's all about profit variance. Alright? So now we move on to the last learning outcome, which is more about discussion based, as I told you in the beginning of the lecture, which is the possible causes. Alright? So let me erase this one first. So this is your possible causes. So we're gonna have 8 possible causes: 2 for material, 2 for labor, 2 for overheads, and 2 for sales. So we're gonna have 8. So let's start with the material cost variance. So material cost variance have 2 types of variances: material price variance and material usage variance. So let's start with the material price variance. What are the reasons that we are paying more than our expectations? So the reason could be first reason could be inflation, any kind of market changes. So as a result, the price that we are paying also change too. So the gap could be unfavorable. Next reason could be a wrong purchase. We order a wrong type of material. So if we order the wrong type of material, we have to return material back to the supplier. So whatever expenses occur in order to return material back to supplier, we have to bear all that kind of costs, such as loading, unloading, ordering, receiving, and then of course we have to receive the new material, and then we have to pay for it. So as a result, my material price will be increased. The third one is changes in the terms with supplier. If any kinds of any kind of contract that we sign with the supplier, if any kinds of new clause or conditions supplier want to add in the contract that may affect over the company pricing payments to the supplier. Another examples could be if supplier bankrupts. If supplier bankrupts and we know that existing supplier used to give us discounts. So if supplier bankrupts, we have to find a new supplier. If we will find a new supplier, then of course we have to pay the higher price, because new supplier less likely to give us a discount. As a result, our material price will be increased, material cost will be increased. So that's about the material price variance. So now we move on to the material usage variance. So material usage variance, the first could be training. Training is a period in which worker they learn, and the company they know that the material consumptions normally increase. So during the material training period, the material consumption will increase. As a result, material usage will be increased, because this is mainly a learning process or learning stage where worker like to learn, and then they consume more material than company expected, right? Next, material usage could be a lack of supervision. If there is a lack of supervision, so of course worker will waste, material wastage will be increased. Next one is a change in a production method. Change in production method. If production method has been changed in order to implement a new method, of course, maybe material consumption of the new method will be increased, may give impact, positive or negative, over the material usage. Next one is low quality raw material. If the quality of raw material is not good enough, so we have to consume more and more material in order to meet the minimum requirements of the product inspector. Right? So by that reason, our material usage will be increased. Right? So that's all about material cost variance. Now we move on to the next is labor variance, which is labor rate variance. All right. Again, what are the reasons that we are paying more to the workers? All right. The first reason is changes in a country labor law. Changes in a company labor law. If labor law has been changed with the company, so according to new labor law, government wants that for the particular industry, particular sectors, a worker will receive a minimum that much wages. I was expecting when I made my standard at that time $10. Maybe after 3 months, new law policy revised, so I have to pay $12 per hour. As a result, my variance will be unfavorable. Right. Next one is worker promotions. All right. Promotion means, as we know that in organizations we have a different level. All right. So lower level is the workers, then foreman, then supervisor, then production manager, so on. And company pay them salary or wages as per their level, as per their rank. All right. So if, let's say, Mr. X, last month he was a foreman and then he became a supervisor. So the payments for the foreman and payments for the supervisor is a difference. If that person will become a supervisor, company has to pay them extra. As a result, labor cost for that particular labor will be increased. Variance could be unfavorable. Next is accident or any kinds of injuries. Accident or injury. If there is any kinds of accident in a factory, then all the medical expenses the company has to bear. As a result, company will pay more money on that worker. So finally, labor cost for that particular worker will increase. So labor rate variance will be increased. Will be unfavorable. Next is we'll move on to the next, which is labor efficiency variance. Right? What are the reasons that company paying and worker performance is not really good as we expected? So the first reasons is raw material. If we purchase a raw material, workers they have to spend more time on that particular product in order to improve the quality of the product. As a result, their worker efficiency will be lower. Next one is lack of safety equipments. Lack of safety equipments. If company do not provide particular safety equipments to the worker, like such as gloves or maybe steel cap boots, or steel caps, or some kinds of goggles, or some other kinds of safety jacket or something else, in that case, worker will feel really uncomfortable in that particular environments. As a result, their performance will not be good. All right. Another is a new production method. If company will implement a new production method, so that production method maybe provide some kind of comfort to the new workers or maybe uncomfort to the new workers, and as a result, their performance will be reduced, right? So maybe increase, maybe decrease, so results could be favorable or unfavorable. Maybe that new production method will increase the performance of the workers, or maybe it takes time for worker to adjust with the new method. So during that time in which they are learning or they are adopting, their performance will be unfavorable. Right? And another reasons could be labor turnover. So labor turnover. So the reason of the labor turnover, the labor turnover could be a reason for the labor efficiency variance, which can give a negative impact, because if you lack less workers, and overall the impact on the existing worker will be high. Maybe that kind of pressures may give a negative impact on the performance of the workers, right? So that's all about labor efficiency variance. Now move on to the next. Next is overhead variance, right? So we have fixed overhead and variable overhead. So we have variable overhead expenditure variance, variable overhead expenditure variance. So since this variable overhead expenditure variance belongs to the machine hour or labor hours, so labor hours possible causes may implement in these situations as well, such as overtime, unexpected overtime, unexpected overtime. So that kind of unexpected overtime may give a negative impact over the expenditure variance. So expenditure variance will be unfavorable. Next could be because it's a labor hours and machine hour. So if machine broke down, all right. So machine downtime. Machine downtime. Machine breakdown. Machine breakdown, so overall the machine performance will be reduced for the particular day or for the particular period. So as a result, variable overhead efficiency variance will be negative. Next is a variable overhead efficiency variance. Variable overhead efficiency variance is about, of course, is about machines. So again, it's machine issues, so machine breakdown, so same machine downtime, right? Second reason could be lack of training. Lack of training to operate that machine, or lack of training to apply that particular method in a production. As a result, performance will be reduced. And next could be a low quality material. Low quality material. If the quality of material is low, so the performance will not be very good as we expected. So next is a fixed overhead variance. Fixed overhead variance. Any kinds of unexpected changes in some kind of fixed overhead cost, right? So any kinds of unexpected changes in fixed overhead, like as factory rent, or insurance premium, or insurance premium. Alright? Insurance premiums, paying for insurance payments or installments. Right? So that's all fixed. We don't have much about fixed overhead variance, but because fixed overhead mainly about the rent, about the insurance and depreciation and so on, but rent and insurance could be changed. Depends upon the contract and depends upon the market changes. Sudden changes that may give impact. Alright? So that's all about material, labor, and overhead variance. Possible causes. So now we move on to the last one, which is sales variance. So sales, we have selling price variance. So selling price variance, first one is changes in a company pricing strategy. Changes in a company pricing strategies. Company trying to change some kinds of pricing strategies of the organizations, and that pricing strategies occur due to the market changes, due to the market condition. Company think that we should make some changes or revised in the pricing method or pricing strategies of the product, right? Next one is not only pricing strategies of company itself impact over the selling price, but is also affected by the pricing strategies of the competitors. If competitors, they make some changes in their products pricing, then of course we have to make changes in that pricing as well. Alright, so changes in a pricing strategies of competitors. Right. So for the competitors as well, for itself, right, and for competitors, the company makes some changes in that one. Next one could be we know that if we want to stimulate the company sales revenue. I mean, if company turnover or company revenue, number of units. If you want to maximize your sales, you have to minimize the price of the product. As a result, company profit will be affected. All right. So we can say that reduce selling price to stimulate the sales turnover. All right. Reduce selling price to stimulate turnover. All right. So that could be a reason. Now move on to the sales volume variance. Right. Sales volume variance. Sales volume variance, first thing could be a change in a demand. If demand of your product is low, so it will affect over the company sales turnover. It's effect over the company sales volume. Right? Next one is changes in the market share of competitors. If competitors' market share change, your market share will be affected. If your market share will be affected, then of course you will have a limited number of customers. All right. So if you have a limited number of customers, so your sales volume will be affected. All right. So that's all about the possible causes for all kind of variance. So keep in mind that here is your discussion list. Alright. So your discussion-based questions could be asked from these variances. So probably they ask you to calculate material cost variance, and they ask you what are the possible causes for material price or material usage, all right, or any other kinds of variances could be asked in your exam. So make sure to prepare for it. All right. Some other variances may also given in your textbook, so you can also. But this is not just a limited. All right. If you think there could be another possible causes and you have a reasonable justifications for those possible causes, that's fine. As long as you understand, that's fine. All right. So that's all about your topic 2. All right. So we give a quick glance on the topic 2, what we studied. So in the beginning of topic 1, we studied what is the meaning of the standard costing, how does it really work, right? So actual budget variance, possible causes, corrective actions, so we also call it management by exceptions, right? And then we look at the purpose of the standard costing, why we do that, why it's really important. Next is variances calculations, right? So material cost variance, labor cost variance, and the overheads, right? So overhead variance, and then two variances come from the sales variance. Right? And the next, the last one is of course possible causes. So possible causes, all the 8 or 9 variances that we studied in this book, right? So that's the end of the topic 1. Topic 2. But of course, we haven't done the calculations. So in the next lecture, next class, so I'm not sure whether school will be open or not. If it's school open, that's great. So I can give you some more class exercises. But if it's not, so I will send you. I will make another short video for next week. I will show you how to calculate, and you can see what kind of questions you can see in your what type of questions you can see in your final exam, and I will help you to solve some previous questions from the previous exams papers and some seminars. So you can practice. I will send you those files as well, so you can practice those questions. So if you have any questions regarding this topic 2, please feel free to send me an email. And please note that this topic 2 will be for your exams, all right? Calculations, questions, minor exam discussion based, all right? So that's all. We stop here. Okay, thank you.